Rosado, evangelist with Today in Bible Prophecy Ministries. We want to thank you so much for tuning in on today's broadcast today as we are coming to you live from our main headquarters here in Lincoln, Rhode Island. It's great to have all of you with us. Very mild day out there today. Starting to warm up, which means summer is only a couple of months away. The baseball season is in full swing and winter is over. So we're looking forward to the mild, warm weather. And so we appreciate all of you being with us today. I know that it's not our usual 1:30 p.m. slot. That might change. There might be various times now because of other circumstances that have come up, but I will let you know ahead of time, which I didn't do this time, but I will let you know ahead of time. And so maybe this is a big surprise to all of you who usually expect us to be on at around 1:30 p.m. So I'm glad that you have time to join us live. If not, then you're watching the archive later on as we upload this to not only Facebook, but also to the other main social networks. When you have an opportunity, I want you to subscribe to our prophecy newsletter. They go out every single week. We'll have them going out this week. And you can subscribe to these free email newsletters by going to my website, todayinbibleprophecy.org. And when you go there, click on Contact, August Rosado, and then type in your name and your email address. And then just request that you want to receive our free newsletters. We'll make sure that we put you right on the email list, and you'll start receiving our weekly free newsletters in which I write articles, what's going on in the ministry, my speaking schedule, and of course the 10 leading news stories of the week, as well as video that we supply for you right there on the newsletter. So you can check that out, and please subscribe and ask a friend, ask them if they'd like to subscribe as well. It's free, and I know that it will be a blessing to you. As I said, we are right now simultaneously live streaming on all three social networks. Facebook, my page is public. That means anybody can watch these live streams, and you can send me a Facebook friend request. And while you do that, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're right now live streaming on YouTube as well. We just right now reached 700 people, subscribers on YouTube. So we are 300 subscribers away from 1,000. That's the goal, is to reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So go to my YouTube channel, August Rosado, and hit that subscription button. Now, you might have to create a YouTube account, which is free, and you don't have to upload any videos. Just create the account, and then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And while you do that, hit that bell icon. So that way you'll be notified when we have new videos uploaded to YouTube. And then we are right now live streaming on Twitter. And you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is at Bible_prophecy. That's my Twitter handle, at Bible_prophecy, or August Rosado at Bible_prophecy. On Twitter, I list all the late breaking news stories that I believe have prophetic significance. And what we're going to start doing on these live streams is looking at news articles. And then I'm going to give you a prophetic perspective on those late breaking news articles. Now, this Sunday, April 17th, I'm going to be speaking at Center Conway Baptist Church in Center Conway, New Hampshire. Eric Ness is the pastor, and he always invites me this time of the year to come into his church when all these other churches are having their little Easter thing. And I personally, I don't like using the word Easter. I don't. But they have their little Easter things and their Easter egg hunts, which I believe have a pagan connection there. And now the new thing is dropping these eggs out of helicopters. And so, I mean, to each his own, I guess. But I personally don't like using Easter. I'm going to be there Sunday, this Sunday, for Passover Prophecy Sunday. And so if you live in Center Conway, New Hampshire, or that surrounding area, bordering Maine, come on out to Center Conway Baptist Church in Center Conway, New Hampshire, this Sunday, April 17th, as I will be preaching a Passover prophecy message. Now, we are roughly about 10 days away from returning back to Israel. We are going back to the Holy Land. I just got back from Israel a little over 2 weeks ago, and we're heading back next Saturday. I'm leading a Bible prophecy tour to the Holy Land. And we have a nice little group going with us, and I'm going to be teaching them Bible prophecy on location. So if you couldn't make it for this trip, well, we're going to be putting together a fall Bible prophecy tour. And I would love to have you join us in the fall. This time we're going to try to do Israel and Greece. Never done Greece before. Walking in the footsteps of Paul the Apostle, and then going to the Isle of Patmos, where John wrote the book of Revelation. So if you would like to join us in the fall, then let us know. We would love to have you join us for our fall prophecy tour to Israel. Now, with that said, we're going to get into our news articles of the day. And I'm calling this Bible Prophecy Update, April 13th, 2022. We look at the political because we know that the political is setting the stage for the prophetic to be fulfilled. So let's look at the first late-breaking news story of the day for our Bible Prophecy Update. The Times of Israel reported Hamas is threatening Israel over what they call extremist plans for a Passover sacrifice on the Temple Mount. The Hamas terror group on Wednesday threatened Israel over plans by Jewish activists looking to rebuild the third Jewish temple to conduct ritual sacrifices on Jerusalem's flashpoint Temple Mount. Now, the Israeli authorities vowed to stop any attempts to bring sacrificial animals to the Temple Mount complex. They've done this in years past. There is a organization in Israel called Returning to the Mount, and the Israeli government looks at them as an extremist group, and they advocate for the construction, the rebuilding of a third Jewish temple on the site that once housed the first two biblical temples. Solomon's temple stood there for 400 years and Herod's temple for 600 years. But they announced on their Facebook page Monday that it would be offering cash prizes to those who managed to sacrifice a lamb on the Temple Mount, and anyone arrested trying to do so would receive compensation. So we know that there are certain groups there in Israel that are trying to sacrifice these animals on the most sacred piece of real estate on earth today. The Jews call it in Hebrew Har Harbayit, the hill of the house. In Arabic, the Muslims call it Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary. But the Temple Mount, the most sacred piece of real estate on earth today, is where the first and second Jewish temples once stood. Today, the Islamic Shrine of the Dome of the Rock occupies the site, which was built at around 691 AD and has been there just a little over 1,300 years. But we know, according to Bible prophecy, that a third Jewish temple is going to occupy the site, a third Jewish temple to stand on Judaism's holiest site, the Temple Mount. And that third Jewish temple will stand during the upcoming 70th week of Daniel's prophecy, the 7-year period of tribulation. And we know that there are 4 proof texts that talk about a third Jewish temple. Daniel 9:27, Matthew 24:15, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, and Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, all tell us that a third temple will be there on that site, the Temple Mount, during the 7-year period of tribulation. Many call it the temple of the Antichrist because it will be desecrated. It will be defiled by the Antichrist at the midway point of the tribulation period. And so we see those 4 proof texts showing that there will be a third Jewish temple to stand on the Temple Mount, and animal sacrifices will be reinstated during the first half anyway of the tribulation period. But those animal sacrifices will cease when the Antichrist, the ruler from the revived Roman Empire, we'll talk about the revived Roman Empire in just a few moments, he will put an end to these sacrifices when he breaks that treaty at the midway point of the tribulation period. And we also have 3 proof texts for that. Daniel 9:27, Matthew 24:15, shouldn't be 16, should be 15, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. He will break that treaty, proclaim to the world that he is God, and go on a global persecution of the Jewish people. So when we see, with Passover coming up this weekend, that these organizations in Israel are looking to sacrifice animals on the Temple Mount, remind us of what is going to happen in the future according to Bible prophecy. Now, France is right now probably over with their election. France is a member of the European Union, but their president, who I think might be reelected, Emmanuel Macron, has been in the news a lot in terms of the EU presidency and, overlooking the European Union. So we found this late-breaking news story here. France election. Why is France's president the most powerful in Europe, and is it a problem? Please do not misunderstand me here. And I'm just going to say this and make myself very clear here. I'm not saying that France's president, Emmanuel Macron, is the Antichrist. I am not saying that, nor am I advocating that, because we don't know who the Antichrist is going to be. Now, is he a candidate? Sure, he's a candidate. But there are also other candidates out there as well. But he's very powerful in terms of being a member of the European Union. So I got this from the Euro News. Why is France's president the most powerful in Europe, and is it a problem? Before taking the reins as head of state, Emmanuel Macron suggested France needed, now this is what he said, a Jupiterian president. That's interesting. A Jupiterian president saying that, quote, a normal person would be destabilizing. So we don't need a normal person. We need a Jupiterian president. to oversee the European Union. He says, we have a president in France who presides over the republic, who controls the government, who controls parliament, who controls the constitutional court. But what we need is a super president, he said. I haven't heard that term in a while, since 2012, but I'll get there in a moment. He says, we need a super president like Jupiter, as we call Macron. They call Macron Jupiter, and they're calling him a super president. Now, the European Union Observer. Now, this was in 2012. This is from the EU Observer. The EU Observer in April of 2012 reported ministers ponder creation of EU super president. The new super president would chair general affairs, monthly meetings of foreign ministers, which discuss internal union affairs. So this is a pretty interesting news article that we saw back in 2012, but it's parallel to this late-breaking one here. France election, why France's president is the most powerful in Europe, and is it a problem? Again, do not misunderstand me here. I am not saying that Emmanuel Macron is the Antichrist. He would be a good candidate, but I am not saying he is the beast out of Revelation chapter 13 and verse number 1. We know that the EU Council President post was created by the Lisbon Treaty in 2009. Bible prophecy calls for the revival of the Roman Empire. That's Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Revelation chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 17. Out of the revival of this Roman Empire will arise 10 final nations, which Daniel describes as 10 horns. Daniel chapter 7, verses 7, 20, and 24. And then 500 years later, John the Apostle talks about the same 10 horns that Daniel spoke about 500 years earlier in Revelation 12:3, Revelation 13:1, Revelation 17, verses 3, 7, 12, and 16. A final 10-nation confederacy will give global authority to the beast out of the revived Roman Empire. And we believe that the European Union is at least the embryo, the infrastructure for the revival of the Roman Empire. Right now, the EU has 27 member states. It had 28, but Britain left in Brexit. And now there's 27. Could Ukraine be member state number 28? I mean, it takes years for the European Union to consider another country to become a member state. It takes at least 7 years just to look at your application. And then even longer for all member states to approve a country to become a member of the Union. But they're looking to expedite Ukraine to become a member of the European Union. Is it going to happen? We don't know. But right now there are 27 member states. The leaders of the European Union said that they want to divide those member countries or those member states into 10 divisions or 10 regions. Going back to Emmanuel Macron, he said in 2019 that we need to create a global European Union military force. You know what he called it? He called it the 10-nation coalition of the willing. 10-nation. And then, going back to the EU Observer, in June of 2012, it said 10 countries for United States of Europe. So we see Emmanuel Macron neck deep in all of this here. But I'm not saying he's the Antichrist. But what I am saying is that Daniel chapter 7, 20, 24, Revelation 12, 3, 13:1, chapter 17, 3, 7, 12, 16, all call for a final 10-nation confederacy. I believe that the EU is the embryo or the infrastructure for the revival of the Roman Empire. And when the Antichrist comes on the scene, the beast out of Revelation 13:1, he will head this final end time 10-horn or 10-nation empire, with those final 10 horns giving him global authority to rule the world and to initiate the mark of the beast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 and 18. So keep your eyes on the development of the European Union. Now, the World Israel News reported that these Arab rioters desecrated the tomb of the biblical Joseph. They smashed the tomb of Joseph in Samaria. Now, they estimated that about 100 Arab rioters desecrated the holy Jewish site near Shechem or Nablus, biblical Samaria, in the center part of the state of Israel, in what initial reports suggest was an act of retaliation for the Israeli Defense Forces anti-terrorist operations in Jenin. Israeli Army radio reported that the rioters broke into Joseph's tomb overnight, Saturday, setting multiple fires inside the site and smashing the headstone marking the grave of the revered biblical figure Joseph. Now, we know Joseph, or his name in Hebrew is Yosef, okay? He's recorded in Genesis chapters 37 through 50. Joseph was one of Jacob's 12 sons who became second in command, second in leadership in Egypt under Pharaoh during the time of severe famine in the area. And God used Joseph to preserve the people of Israel when Jacob and his family, 70 in all, leave Canaan, today Israel. They go into Egypt. They're there in Egypt for nearly 430 years, and then they leave Egypt during the Passover, a little over 2 million, simply because God used Joseph, to preserve the Jewish people. If Joseph did not become second in command in Egypt, Jacob and his family would have perished in Canaan due to starvation. But God used Joseph to preserve the Jewish people. Again, leaving Canaan 70 in all, leaving Egypt 2 million, some 430 years later. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. Joseph, in the future, will have a role in the end times as one of the 12 tribes in Revelation chapter number 7. We know Revelation chapter number 7 records the 144,000, 12,000 each from the 12 tribes of Israel. And these 144,000 Jews will preach to the masses during at least the first half of the tribulation period. Now, Levi and Joseph were not tribes per se, but Joseph and Levi replaced Dan and Ephraim, two tribes that adopted paganism during that time, to keep the number at 12 in Revelation chapter number 7. As I said, God will raise up 144,000, 12,000 each from the 12 tribes of Israel to preach the gospel during the 70th week of Daniel's prophecy. And some have speculated, they can't prove it, or we can't prove it, but some have speculated that the false prophet of Revelation 13:11 comes from the tribe of Dan, which is why Dan is absent by its conspicuance among the 12 tribes there in Revelation chapter number 7. We can't be dogmatic about that, but that again is just speculation. Now, we know Passover begins this Friday, April 15th at sundown, and ends on sundown, April 23rd. Now, when let me just look at this news story right here for you there. Palm Sunday was the day, or what they call Palm Sunday, and the day of the lambs. John the Baptist saw Jesus walking toward him at the Jordan River, and he announced in John 1:29, John 1:36, "Behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world." God instructed the Israelites to choose an unblemished and perfect lamb, a lamb without blemish, to kill it and then apply its blood to the doorpost. The Lamb of God sent as a sacrifice, not in the temple, but to die on the cross as a sacrifice, a kippur in Hebrew, for the sins of all humanity. 2,000 years ago, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on what was called the Day of the Lambs. Some call it Palm Sunday, but the Day of the Lambs. The day that Jewish shepherds annually herded huge flocks of Passover lambs into Jerusalem, which signaled the beginning of the Passover celebration. Jesus rode from Bethpage going all the way down to the Mount of Olives. Todd Baker and I were at Bethpage in 2019. We did a study over there that you can watch on my YouTube channel. Jesus fulfilled the prophetic description of the Old Testament, poignantly shown in Isaiah chapter 53, that he would die for the sins of all humanity. Jesus' birth to a young Jewish woman, Miriam, or Mary, fastened the Old and New Testament into one glorious unit, one glorious story in the history of humanity. Now, estimates are hard to come by, but the Jewish historian Josephus Flavius says that at 1 million or more Jewish Passover pilgrims were already flowing into the capital city, Jerusalem, from all over the world, because they had to be there, based on Deuteronomy 16:16, for the three main Jewish feasts of Passover in the spring, Pentecost in the summer, and Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, in the fall. When Jesus rode a donkey into Jerusalem, fulfilling Zechariah 9:9, it occurred on the same day when the shepherds at Bethlehem, where he was born, annually herded huge flocks of Passover lambs into Jerusalem for a sacrifice. It was known as the Day of the Lambs. It was a divine cultural context with awe-inspiring purpose. The Sadducees, which was a liberal sect of Judaism who capitulated to the Roman authorities and had control of the temple at that time, they were in charge of the temple sacrifices. But they also owned the Bethlehem fields and the lambs that were raised there. They hired priestly shepherds who were experts in animal farming or husbandry, if you will. The Sadducees consisted of these priestly shepherds, or Levitical priests, if you will, and because the lambs they tended were ewe lambs, gave birth, were destined for temple sacrifices. And we know, based on Exodus chapter 12 and verse number 5, instructs, your lamb shall be without spot. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Again, the Jewish historian Josephus Flavius estimates that as many as 265,000 lambs were sacrificed. That's just in one day. For that, that's a lot of lambs to be sacrificed for Passover. But that's what he says. Is the number inflated? We don't know. But we do know at Jesus' first coming, he was a lamb led to the slaughter. He's a lamb without blemish, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. However, excuse me, at his second coming, he is not going to return as a lamb to allow sinful men to put their filthy hands on him. But he's coming back as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Revelation chapter 5 and verse number 5. And when he comes back at his second coming, at the end of the tribulation period, he will crush the nations who oppose him. He will destroy the Antichrist and the false prophet and throw them into the lake of fire. He will crush his enemies, and he will establish a kingdom from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. Listen, before all that, however, we know that with all these news stories that I have shared with all of you today is indicative of what is to come. Because we know the next main event on God's calendar of activities is the rapture of the church. No signs precede it and no prophecies have to be fulfilled. It is imminent, which means it could happen at any moment, at any time. All indications show, looking at these geopolitical news stories today, all indications show we are so close to this event we call the rapture of the church. And all we can say to that is Maranatha. Even so, come, Lord Jesus. I know I probably threw a lot of you off today with this new start that time. Now, this ain't going to be like this all the time, but things might change a little bit now with some new things coming up for us here at the ministry. But I do see Michael Popes is watching via YouTube. Great to have Michael with us. And let me just see if I missed anyone over here on. Okay, are we back on? Looks like we're back on again. All right, so, okay. So we are back on. And let me, as I said, let me just, all right, let's hit this again. Are we back on? Yeah, it looks like we're back on again. So I'm not sure what happened, but we see Stephen Schmidt, Zeke Garza, Miguel Santiago says, in what way is he a candidate? I said he might be a candidate. Never said he could be a candidate. I'm not saying he is a candidate. He might be a candidate, Emmanuel Macron, simply because of the statements, Miguel, that he's been making. But please, like I said, do not misunderstand me here. I am not saying that Emmanuel Macron is the Antichrist. He could be a candidate. He might not be a candidate. We don't know. Okay, so please be very careful. Let's be very careful here. He says, name McRon is an age. I think he said McRon is an age-old. The Darren Scottish nickname for a person with blonde hair. The Scottish name. I don't know what that is all about. Anyway, we have Michael Popes. He's watching. Perry Baugh. Great to see Pastor Perry Baugh. And so, again, guys, I appreciate all of you watching today. We had a little disruption there with the internet. Not sure what was going on with that. But I hope to see you all tomorrow. Time to be determined, okay? Time to be determined. I will let you know. So I hope you have a great day today. And remember, keep looking up. Jesus is coming soon. And Shalom Shalom Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we will talk to you later. God bless.